Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Footmarks podcast. I'm Behram Qazi, who you can find at Def Mango on Twitter, and with me, as always, is Jarrod Kimber, who you can find literally everywhere. And this podcast is powered by our supporters on Patreon. You could become one of them, by the way, by going to Patreon/Good Areas Podcasts. And also, that would allow you to enjoy ad-free content, talk to us exclusively, and, get more deets on Jarrod's book, some fun stuff like that. This particular episode of the Footmarks podcast, the title is Heavy Metal Number Fives. And I'm really fascinated by this. The minute Jarrod wrote the piece, I was like, we have to do a Footmarks on this. And Jarrod, we've literally, in not too long, gone from the likes of Shiv Narayan Chandapal, Steve Waugh, even throw in Misbah-ul Haq, all of whom were certified number 5 batters in Test cricket. And they were gritty to their core. That was their distinct quality. I mean, good luck trying to get those guys out, right? And now, all of a sudden, we live in an era where we see number 5 batters like Harry Brook, Rishabh Pant, and Travis Head, who counterattack and are random as fuck with respect to their methods. And they also disrupt opposition team plans. That's basically what they're there for in the team. And that is one hell of a transition.
Yeah, one of the reasons this piece came about is it was a conversation ages ago. It might have been me, Varun, and Sean, and we were surprised when we looked at it might have been, did we do a quick picks on the greatest number 5 or something like
we
that?
Did.
Do you remember? Yeah,
we did. You wrote a piece as well.
Yeah, and at that stage, what we were surprised at is how defensive number 5s were, because it's a batting position with quite a lot of freedom, right? Like compared to the top 4, and you're still a specialist batter, and yet they were quite defensive and stuck and limited at times, and so. I thought it was very, very interesting that that's where we ended up, right? That we did that. And then suddenly we've had this incredible explosion coming out of the Misbah, Steve Waugh, Shiv, I'm trying to think some of the other sorts of players, to what Mohammed Yusuf is another one. Mm-hmm. We've just sort of had this sort of explosion in the other direction, right? Of suddenly everyone is making just millions of runs from those positions and doing it quickly, and it's a combination of both that I think was so interesting for us.
That's true. I mean, it is really fascinating if you look at these guys, right? Harry Brook, Rishabh Pant, Travis Head. I mean, if you don't dismiss them early, they will absolutely wreck you. Like an hour of these guys could knock you out of contention, right? And they've been doing this effectively, or quite effectively, for a hot minute now, since the pace-playing pandemic or start of the pace-playing pandemic. Maybe not all 3 of these guys, but that's kind of where we see this shift, right? Where number 5s have started to average as much as number 4s, which is, it's groundbreaking, I feel, because number 4 is that position where you bat your best batters, right? And, I mean, do you think that number 5s have had more success than number 4s or the same amount of success, largely because batting conditions have gotten harder in the pace-playing pandemic, and by playing aggressively in that number 5 role, A, you're coming in a bit later than the number 4 batters, and B, by playing aggressively, you're increasing your chances of success even when the conditions are tougher for batting?
Yeah, I think essentially the pace-playing pandemic and the reinforced theme of Kookaburra, right? So those two things sort of come together, and you can throw in a little bit more of WTC points as well, right?
True.
Essentially means that the wickets are a little bit more lively and are more likely to do something early on, right? So I think that's why we're seeing more runs from number 5. I think it's as simple as that. And I think teams are consciously or subconsciously pushing their best batters further down the order, because if the higher you have them, the less likely they are to make runs anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like it's as simple as that at the moment. So I think there is a subconscious push a little bit further down the order. And then the second thing that is happening here is this the sorts of players that we are putting in those positions tend to be players who fuck shit up, right? Like they just are. And I suppose that again makes sense. You wouldn't really bat Brook or Head or Rishabh Pant at first drop, right? I think that would be a very odd decision to do. You might use head as an opener, right? And Australia has occasionally, but not consistently. But you wouldn't bat them at first drop, and you probably wouldn't bat them at second drop in the way that they are now. Not to say that any of those guys can't mature into a second drop, but as cricket currently stands, I just don't know. See, I had someone message me go, "Oh, Harry Brook will eventually bat number 4," and I'm like, he might. But even if he does, I don't think he can continue to bat exactly as he is if he bats at number 4. And if he was batting at number 4 now, he would have to change. He would have to be a different cricketer right now. So I do think there is a freedom batting at number 5. But the other thing that's happened is that traditionally, so when the wobble ball and pace playing dynamic, whatever you want to say, starts to happen, right? People get very defensive. That's how we try and counter it. There's all these people saying to me that, the reason the averages have dropped is because people play shots now. It was the opposite. They tried to defend this ball. They couldn't defend it. And then they were like, okay, we're just going to have to attack. That's still really hard to do in the top 4, right? There's a couple of players doing it, but it's really hard to do in the top 4 because the ball is nipping around everywhere. The player who can get away with that is the number 5 who was coming in, a little bit later, maybe the 12th or the 15th over, right? And so they can counter attack. And so I do think that it makes sense that the number 5 is the one that's getting away with it the most. And so some of that is probably luck, but I also think there is an element of the best players are moving down the order. And it's easier. I don't think that Travis Head is that much better than I don't think Travis Head is better than Steve Smith as a batter, right? But if you look at their runs over the last couple of years, I would say their averages are pretty similar. And that's because Steve Smith's role is just a lot harder than what Travis Head's is. And so then you have this explosion of attacking, which you can get away with slightly more at number 5. So it's a fascinating sort of combination of all those things.
Yeah, I mean, when you guys looked at the data, right, we saw that number 5s have done quite well in the last 3.5 decades or so, right? But it's this current brand of number 5 batters that is a whole lot louder. It's like louder than me in a podcast, and that's saying something, right? And I mean, what I want to ask you over here is that do you think that this was an intentional shift in approach since the start or advent of the pace-playing pandemic and the wobble seam era? Or was there an element of randomness with respect to its discovery?
There's a conversation, and I might have even been before the pace-playing pandemic, that Ben Jones from CricViz had, where he was like, if England can't find a top 3 player, why not just use Chris Woakes? Right? And Chris Woakes was averaging about 30 at the time. And what I said was, if specialist number 3s can't make any runs at number 3 against the new ball, Chris Woakes is going to average about 15. Right? And it wouldn't have worked. And Chris Woakes is probably a little bit too limited a player to be able to do that, right? But we have seen other sides try it. Raymond Reifer, Jacob Bethel, Moeen Ali,
Leon Mulder.
Leon Mulder is the prototype, the greatest false 3 in the history of cricket, right?
Yep.
So I think there's an element of eventually they came. If you can't find anyone in domestic cricket who can make runs in the top 3, which is a big deal at the moment, it really is. Have a look at some of the Sheffield Shield numbers coming out. You've got guys averaging 34 with a strike rate of 30, right? And everyone's like, well, maybe they'll be the next player to play for Australia. And it's like, well, you can't pick them. Like, yeah, I mean, and so think about I do think there is a follow-on there.
Yeah, I mean, Australia, they've gone and invested in one of their brightest young all-rounders to become their number 3 batter in recent times. That's where we're at, right? Cam Threen is where we're at.
And so I think that has just come from the fact that I've been saying this for a long time. If you look at domestic cricket, outside of India, I don't think there are many domestic structures in the world where people are making a lot of runs in their top 3, right? It's just not something that you're seeing all that much. And it's because the balls have changed, right? And it's because the bowlers have changed. And so the bowlers have suited the balls. And so if you're a cricket team now and you're looking at, I don't know, I forget the guy's name, the Victorian guy, but there's someone in South, Jake Witherald or someone like that. You're like, well, why not just pick someone that is better than him? So the false 3 is one thing that teams are doing. The other thing that they're big doing, and this isn't particularly new, but is picking backup openers, right? Of just being like, pick your 3rd best opener and bat them at number 3, which is kind of what Zach Crawley was for a while as well, right? Yeah. And we've seen other teams. England has done that pretty consistently in the history of cricket. So
I mean, Shah Masood is an example of that.
Exactly. And there's a few teams that have tried that, right? So that's probably the most traditional way of doing it. If you can't find a number 3, you pick up a backup opener. The problem for some teams is they don't even have 2 openers. So picking a third opener is almost impossible. So you pick up a backup opener. The other option is to just pick your top 6 most talented batters and make someone bat at number 3, which is the Cameron Green thing. It's the Tristan Stubbs thing, right? Yeah. Where you're just like, look, they're good. Well, let's hope they can make it work at number 3. You can still pick, I think Casey Carty in the West Indies is an example of someone who is a number 3. He might not have made a lot of runs, but at least he knows the position and maybe he can get you, a few runs. And then you have the, Moeen Ali, Raymond Reifer, VM Mulder, Jacob Bethel, these sorts of false 3s where we know they're not number 3s, right? No one is pretending that just because, like, even in the South African camp, they're not like, oh, we found the next, great number 3. We found the next Hashim Amla. Like, no one believes that with VM Mulder, but, he does have some batting talent, right? And Jacob Bethel does have some batting talent. Maybe, and they have secondary skills. Raymond Reifer was another one with secondary skills. Maybe we can kind of manufacture that spot. And if they average 20 and they bat for 40 minutes, but they give you extra with the ball, perhaps that's enough, right? Like it changed. If you think of South Africa, it allows them to bat to 7 in a different, with a really good number 7, right? Yeah. And if they're batting with a number 3 who's going to average 30, they might be like, well, if Vian Mulder averages 22, the 8 runs we're missing there is worth it.
You're basically doing Kyle Verreynne solid by batting Mulder at 3.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I would go from this from a very different perspective. But I don't want to say these teams are wrong because this is a very weird world that Test cricket has found itself in, right? If people were making runs domestically, you would have choices to bring in, but there aren't that many players making runs domestically in the top 3s of all these countries either. So again, one way or another, you are picking someone who is not suited for the role, who might fail, but they might not fail so poorly that you can't still win games.
Well, when I look at the number 5 spot and, when I'm trying to think to myself, was it accidental? Was it planned? I mean, let's break it down, right? Let's put the Baz ballers on one side. They were always going to do this, the Johnny Bairstows and Harry Brooks, right? And then you have Travis Head. He, I feel, kind of landed that counter-attacking role accidentally in the sense that he was returning to the team and this one thing worked for him and then he was like, I'm just going to continue to do this. And then you also had Mitch Marsh and those guys and they were like, our top 4 bats slowly. It is the wobble seam era. It's tough to bat in this era. So let's counterattack 5, 6, 7 because even Alex Carey does that. With Pant, I feel it's intentional. I feel like India are now intentionally slotting him in at 5 so that they can do the same thing that Head and Brook are doing for their teams.
Yeah, it's weird when you think of those 3 different players because Pant only bats at 5, really, because of their obsession with left, right.
True. That's a Gambhir thing.
Yeah. But even before that, I mean, I've never talked to Rahul Dravid about it, but I think when Rishabh Pant was up the order, there was a bit of, we need another left-hander. We've got too many right-handers, right? So Pant's kind of there by accident. Head, probably, if we're being honest, he would be a number 6, I suppose, when he came back in. But they wanted the number 6 spot for the all-rounder. So 5 is the other obvious spot for him to go. And the same with Harry Brook of where else do you bat Harry Brook in that lineup, right? So they're actually, all 3 of those players are slightly limited. They're not as flexible as other players, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Head maybe a little bit more so because he can at least be an opener, right? But there is a sort of a lack of flexibility in those guys. But I think that's the accident. Right. But the real, and it's not, we're just mentioning 3 players. Mendes is another one that you can throw in there as well. Chandimal, made a lot of runs from 5. So if you look at the number 5 position over the last, couple of years, I'm trying to think, maybe Bavuma made his runs at 5 as well. So there's been a lot of guys who've made runs at number 5 in the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah. No matter the method. That, to me, suggests that it is more to do with that's the easiest position now in the batting lineup. Because it's so hard up top. And then, because of that, you're having an explosion of people doing it their way, right? And maybe it's dumb luck that teams had the attacking players, but I think you're right. I think what happened is Australia were forced into it because they had the most defensive lineup they've had in, I don't know, for a long time, right? And, Warner, you take an inform Warner out, because I mean, I think we have to start even before he left the side, but you take an inform Warner out and suddenly you're in a very, very different situation, right? Harry Brook and the Bazballs, as you said, again, anyone they were going to pick was going to be attacking, right?
Yep.
So that makes a lot of sense. And then in Rishabh Pant, again, there's a bit like Travis said, there's a touch of the sort of accidental about it, right? Like, he's a left-hander and we need a left-hander in this position, and it's working, so we're going to keep him in, there. So I do think there is an element of sort of dumb luck to it. But as I said, that's the attacking side of it. But even if you look at the other number fives who are not quite as naturally attacking as those guys, so someone like Daryl Mitchell, right? So we haven't mentioned him at all. He's not even mentioned in my piece. He's another guy who is, he came in at number 5, and I kept looking for reasons why he was being successful when everyone else wasn't, right? And part of it is he's massively tall and he could cover the wobble ball a little bit for a while. I think that was a big part of it. The other thing is probably just he was batting at number 5, right? And we completely missed that. And you look at guys like Saud Shakil, Chandamal, right? Both very, very, both faster than normal players, right? They're not slow scoring players. Bavuma, he's another one, as I said before, again, scoring, he's got a ridiculous average at number 5, right? So there are quite a few players here who are either scoring quickly or making more runs than you would expect in that position. What's his name? Who made runs for the West Indies before everyone worked him out? Alec Athanaze, right?
Yeah.
People are coming in, they're batting at number 5, and they're making runs. Some of them are attacking because that is part of their skill, and that's almost a separate argument. But, Danijay De Silva just had his best run, right? And he was batting at number 5. So I do think there is an element of all of those things playing a much bigger part than we understand. And, Cricketing View, Katsuke gets a lot of hate, and obviously he's very didactic with some of his views, and they don't always actually fit how cricketers play, right? Like, I understand why people are upset. But one of the things that he talks about is the conditions that you come into quite often will dictate how you go, right? Now, where he's a bit didactic on it is he doesn't always accept form and confidence and all these other things, which are a part of it, right? But his general point is true. There's a reason why, I'm looking at here, all the number 5s who have made over, 550 runs, right, in the last 5 years. The lowest average is Stokes at 35. And everyone else is averaging 39 and above in an era when no one's making any runs, Behram, right? No one's making any runs at all. We've got a lot of number 5, so much so that some of these guys have ended up in other positions, like because they're making so many runs, right? So it's a really fascinating one to have a look at that and just how much it has changed.
Yeah, that is a really intriguing find. And of course, there's more to talk about number 5 batters of the current era. But before that, we shall be taking a short break. You guys are watching the Footmarks podcast with Behram and Jarrod, and go nowhere because we will be back in like half a minute.
Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually, he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today.
Welcome back to the Footmarks podcast. You guys are with Jarrod and Behram. And Jarrod, I mean, the title of this episode is Heavy Metal Number 5s, but we do still have some throwback conventional number 5s around who have been successful. It's not just been the attacking brand of number 5 batters, right? Like, think of Kamindu Mendes. I know he has a strike rate of around 60, which is still high. But generally, he is someone who likes to get himself set and then plays his shots. Saud Shakil probably has a strike rate around 50, if I'm assuming, right? And both of these guys are averaging over 15 Test cricket. So,
those are both historically very fast strike rates. Like, anything over 45 is historically better than normal. They're both over 50 and one of them's at 60. 60 is like, isn't that Brendan McCullum's strike rate? Isn't he like 63 or something? Do you know what I mean? So you're saying, they're not, even they've moved.
But like, from a strategic perspective, do you think that other teams will now try to replicate what the big 3 are kind of up to, or will they try to find their own mold of number 5 batters?
No, I don't. I mean, if you had a Travis Head sitting on the bench, he'd probably be in the side, wouldn't he? So
Yeah.
no, I don't. I don't think that's the case. I think you will pick the players that best suit you. So Mendes at 5, and I'm just looking at his numbers at 5 here. His strike rate is 64. Chanamal was 58 though, right? And Danajay De Silva is, I think, 55. So Sri Lanka have actually gone through quite a few. I think Matthews also batted at 5 quite a bit in this period.
Yeah,
so they've actually had a few different people who've batted there. Those are all above average strike rates. And even for modern cricket, that's around, I mean, probably Chandimal at 58 is probably closer to about par now, I would have thought, right?
Yeah.
So there aren't that many grit and grind guys of the last couple of years. So if the guys with the lowest strike rates are Nichols, Fawad Alam, where are we? Mustafika Rahim and Sword Shakil, right? So Sword is probably the only one. Sword and Mustafika are probably the only two, that have played a lot in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
So there is a natural speeding up, right, that is happening right across the board. But I don't think all teams are going to pick aggressive players. But I think if you are going to pick an aggressive player now, right? So let's say the West Indies have a player that they think is pretty good in limited overs cricket, and they're like, we think he can transfer his skills, across. So I don't know if that's they might be thinking that about, let's say, Brandon King. If you are doing that right now, the position to bat them in would be number 5, right?
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
So I think that's the change, rather than just bringing a player in and seeing how they go. In other positions, I think it's probably much more likely now that if you were to, bring a player in like that, you'll bat them at number 5. Brandon King didn't bat at number 5, by the way. I think he batted at 3 or 4.
4. But he batted at 4.
Yeah, you're right. But realistically, if they were paying attention to this trend, or even when it eventually becomes subconscious, I think the next Brandon King probably bats at 5, and you might see. Let's say there's let's say Pakistan have someone who makes a ton of runs in limited overs cricket, and they want to bring him across. Again, I think 5 is the spot they will do that, because there's now once what you've done is you've set a template, right? Yeah. So what Brook, Pant, and Head specifically have done is set a template for other teams to be like, oh, okay, we understand how this works now. So if you picked an attacking player, you could say to them, we want you to be like this. That's a lot easier for that player as well.
Yeah, I mean, your number 5 need not necessarily be an attacking batter. Like, for instance, South Shakil, if his strike rate is around 50, historically that's high, but he's not a disruptor. But as a tactician or a coach, if you want to slot in a disruptor, you look at that number 5 spot, is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah, and so maybe with Saud, you move him to 4 or 6, right? If that's what you want to do. And if things are working for teams, they don't like... if Pakistan's like, it's working for us at the moment, we're making runs, we're happy with him at number 5, you might not make a choice. But if Saud gets injured, right? If Saud asks to move in the batting order, or if he completely drops off form and they have to drop him, that's when you might go, okay, well, what we need here is a player who can come in and do this. And I think that role has now been set. You will still, but I think it's almost twofold, because the other thing that you might see is, and we haven't seen this yet, but then if you look at what happened in the 90s, and I know we'll come to that in a moment, there is every chance that the number 4s will start to move to number 5, right?
That's the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, right?
Yeah.
That's
so
very
if that happens, what you might get is the attacking players coming in at number 5, but you might also get the best batter in the team going, I don't want to bat 4 anymore. I want to bat at number 5.
Yeah, because, when I was reading your piece and watching your video, you talk about how traditionally your best batter or any team's best batter used to bat at number 3, right? And that changes in the 90s with Sachin and everyone. And then since then, teams have played their best batter at number 4. And number 5 is different currently. You're still playing your best batter at number 4. Your Steve Smiths and Joe Roots are playing at number 4. Shubman Gill has moved down to number 4, right? And yet, we see number 5s averaging as much as these number 4 batters. The strike rates are the highest for number 5 batters in the pace-playing pandemic, right? So those are pretty stark numbers. And it ultimately comes down to, teams deciding whether or not they play their best batter at number 5 now, or do they look for that disruptor who can come and wreck shit up, right? Who can completely throw off the opposition team's plans, like Brook, Head and Pant do.
So when Schiffner and Chandrapal and Steve Waugh batted at 5 and wanted to bat at 5, you look at some of the number 3s that Australia picked in that time, and they were obviously really struggling. And Greg Blewett plays a lot of games, and there was always an element of, especially within Australian cricket, of saying, well, Steve Waugh should just go up the order and bat at number 3 because he's the best player, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine any team on earth putting any pressure on the number 4 or the number 5 to go up to number 3 anymore, right? Joe Root was probably the last one who had it, right? Where Joe Root there was like, oh, maybe you should bat at 3. But with Joe Root, it was more, you're batting at 4 and you're in so early, you might as well bat at 3. It was really, that was literally the argument for a long period of time there, which is how Barry Richards became an opener back in the old days. He had a couple of openers who couldn't make any runs, and he just went, why don't you just open? Then, if you're going to be in the first over, you might as well face the first ball. So other than the Joe Root one, we haven't seen a lot of pressure in that direction. And so, with Shiv and Steve Waugh, it was seen as shielding. Whereas now it's like, maybe the best batter will pick number 4 or number 5 position just because of where cricket is at the moment. And a lot of this it has a lot to do with the history of cricket. And, England obviously dominated. So in the old days in England, you wanted your best batters to be openers. And if you go through the early best batters, so many of them were openers, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the countries never felt that way. And the West Indies and Australia were the two that were like, number 3 is the best spot. And England's the only holdout on that country. Everyone else kind of agrees with that. And as you said, when Lara and Callis followed Tendulkar and moved down to number 4, that changes things a lot. If you are, so as I said, someone emailed me and was like, oh, Harry Brook's going to bat at number 4. If I'm Harry Brook at the moment and Joe Root retires next year, I don't think I'm moving my position, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm saying, if you want me to continue to average ridiculous numbers, I think I'm going to find that harder to do at number 4 than I am at number 5. And you can put another top order player in at number 4 who can, that means that the ball's older by the time I come in and I can wreck stuff a lot more. So it'd be interesting to see if we'll ever have that as the major position. I still think the best batters will pick between 4 and 5 now, rather than automatically picking 5. But the best players used to pick between 3 and 4. So we've already moved one whole spot back. And for a little while, it wasn't even 3 and 4, right? It was just 4. And now it's moving on. So it'd be really interesting to see the next sort of player who's a superstar who picks number 3. Because Shubman Gill could have batted at number 3, right? Like he used to want to be an opener, right? Yeah. And so he's gone from saying, he wanted to open to saying he wants to bat at number 4. So he skipped the number 3 position entirely, which is, that's part of the interesting part of all this, right? Like, people are just moving around all randomly. We talked about the Steve Smith wanting to be an opener. He didn't want to be number 3. Wouldn't it have made more sense in that period for Marnus to open and Smith to bat 3? But he skipped it. There's something very odd happening with the way that teams see that position at the moment. And because of that, you have the follow-on with 4 and 5. So I could definitely see the best players in the team not wanting to go up the order anymore. I don't think Rishabh Pant's a natural number 4, but Brook and Head could probably bat at number 4, like when their number 4s disappear. Yeah. I'm not sure they'll move. I'm not sure they'll move. Whereas traditionally, that is what would have happened.
I feel like teams, which includes the coach, captain, and even the players, the big decision that they have to make moving forward, and we might just be at that precipice, right? Like, there's a fork. And one road leads to the path where you're like, okay, we should probably move our best batter to number 5 now because the conditions or playing conditions are easier now for those batters. The ball is softer and whatnot. And the other school of thought or the other path is that let's look for a maniac who can deliver a knockout punch, right? And let's go that direction. So it's a very interesting time right now because we don't know how this will materialize in the future. But you spoke a lot about number 3s. Another thing that I saw in your piece was that number 5s have only averaged better than number 3s in 3 decades ever throughout the history of cricket. The 1990s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. So I feel like the real question over here is that how long do you think we have till Wian Mulder and his army of false 3s basically takes over Test cricket?
Yeah, I mean, they will take over. They will take it over by not making many runs.
Yeah, but we've already seen the start, right?
Yeah, I suppose that this is an extreme. Things happen very quickly and very violently. So I did a piece the other day about how we see so many records being broken and so many, random games that we'll never forget happening in a row, right?
Yeah.
That we have to accept that is what Test cricket is at the moment. So what happens if the players work out, well, what happens if the powers that be decide that, we want to ease off on the Kookaburra a little bit, maybe even, partner with Kookaburra and take away some of the reinforced seam or whatever. There might be another change. But if the ball continues to do as much as it is early on, it's hard to see the next Kane Williamson coming through and picking number 3. Right? It really is hard to see that. And Kane Williamson was the last of a dying breed, right? Like he was already, we were already wondering before how many people will pick number 3. Does the next Kane Williamson come in and bat at number 5 is what we're now saying, right? And that's the big difference. I think, in the old days, it's really fascinating to go back, but a lot of great batters would start batting at number 6. Even sometimes at number 7, sometimes they put the wicketkeeper ahead of them to bring this young kid in so he understood Test cricket a little bit at a young age, so there was no pressure on them. They would bat at number 6. People now are much more likely to make their debut batting in the top 3 than they are probably in 4, 5, and 6, because 4, 5, and 6 is where your senior players who are expected to make all the runs are.
Yes,
right?
That's true.
So it's a very different world that everyone is coming into. So let's say you came in and you made a lot of runs at number 3. You're probably waiting for your number 4 to retire or move to number 5 so you can slip down one spot, right? That's very different than the old days where you were bad at number 6 for a while. Sort of Ricky Ponting, Sachin Tendulkar batting at number 6 and then moving up the order, right? Yeah. Whereas now it feels like the opposite is going to happen in the future. You prove that you're worthy of batting by, batting at number 3 or even number 4, hoping that you can get your position at number 5, right? Like that's kind of the way that it is being done. So we are flipping cricket. What we don't know, Behram, is what will happen in 5 to 10 years' time, as I said, with the balls, with the wobble ball, with pitches and everything else, because things could massively change in another direction really quickly.
I mean, as things stand, I feel like this number 5 revolution that we are witnessing, it is more so vibes-based than mathematical, but moving on wherever it or whatever it materializes into, I feel like it'll be more mathematical than vibes-based here on, right? Because we know all of these things now.
Yeah, I think the number 3 thing is probably conscious, right? As in, I think at number 3, and that's what changed number 5. Number 3 has changed number 5, right?
True. That
is conscious. And there is a direct follow-up that has affected number 5. As you said, some of those, we went through them before, some of them are a bit more dumb luck, right? Like it's just, this is, Rishabh Pant and Travis Head is more dumb luck than anything else. And in other eras, Travis Head probably bats at number 6 and Rishabh Pant probably bats at number 7. This is where it gets real fun. Do you want? I can take this a step further if you want.
Okay.
Teams did used to have specialist number 6s. Right?
Asad Shafiq.
Asad Shafiq. Talk about the last of a dying breed. He might be it, right?
Yeah.
We don't have specialist number 6s anymore. And the reason we don't have specialist number 6s anymore is very obvious. And it is because we have back-to-back test matches and teams are really desperate to fit in as much extra bowling as they can, right? So we don't have the same amount. We now have players who generally, it's very rare for a team to go in with 4 bowlers, 1 wicketkeeper and 6 batters. It's really rare in test cricket to go in with that kind of a lineup anymore, right? That's the lineup that Australia and the West Indies dominated world cricket with for 35 years or something. And no one does it anymore, right? So there's this weird pressure going on in the batting order, right? Where you're almost compressing all your batting into number 4 and number 5 positions, right? And so you need to fit another all-rounder into the side. And so the false 3 is becoming part of that look to get more all-rounders in. Yeah. And so it is possible that if you've got 3 great bats and you want them to make as much runs as possible, forget the openers, because the openers are the random outlier here. But if you have 3 great bats and they can't open, right, you have to bat them at 4, 5, and 6 now in order for them to get as many runs out of them as possible, which means that you need the all-rounder to be at number 3, which actually strengthens the case for the false 3. So you have these all these different pressures are moving in all these different directions at the same time, Behram, that we've never seen before. And it's all realistically just because in the last couple of years, Test cricket has changed so violently. We score quicker. We have points now. We have back-to-back Test matches. T20 cricket is playing a big role in the development of players, right? DRS, all these different things are happening at the same time. And it is massively changing the way the game is played. And so teams are trying to, in real time, work out what they are doing. What we are seeing now, as we said before, is we are seeing multiple templates of how you can construct your team, right? And it's a fascinating one because we don't know what's going to happen next and we don't know what's going to work. And there is no right answer. You just have to work out how you can make it work for your team.
The minute you find a false number 3 batter who can average 35 in that spot, I feel like we'll strike, or that'll be cricket striking gold, right? Like that would be the moment where this actually becomes the template forward. But right now, I think we are still a bit far away from it. But I mean, at least we're having those conversations.
I think the real template is: would Vernon Philander, Paul Rifle? I'm trying to think of some other guys like that. How far can we stretch the false 3? Right?
True.
Was Wasim Akram, Chris Wokes is the one we were talking about before. Can we stretch it to a point where these people can average 20, but fuck shit up with their 20?
Yeah.
Right? Because I picked those guys on purpose because they're all hit the ball really, really hard, right? Can we, if Lance Klusener was playing in Test cricket now, he would bat at number 3. Right? Yeah. It makes a lot more sense to bat him at number 3 than it does anywhere else. And that allows you to move your wicketkeeper batter down to number 7. Right? And if you have a Jadeja, I mean, maybe Jadeja's wrong, but if you have a Washington Sundar, right? Yeah. Or you have I'm trying to think of someone else. If you have someone else like that, you could bat them at 8. And so you have more bowling options and you have more, and you have a longer batting lineup, but you are giving up a little bit at the number 3 position, but assuming that you will make that back at 4, 5, and 6 and 7 probably in that situation.
Yeah. Anyway, let's take a short break. You guys are watching Footmarks with Jarrod and Behram, and we'll be back in like half a minute, so go nowhere.
Brian Lara used pot plants to work on his placement. John Wright glued his glove to his bat. Sachin Tendulkar dug up practice pitches. Tatenda Taibu cut the top off his bat. Claire Taylor used a hockey grip. Steve Smith was from tennis. Dean Jones would call phantom runs. And Victor Trumper turned the nets into a war zone to survive. The best batters in the world do whatever they have to make runs. We have told their stories in our new book, The Art of Batting.
Welcome back to the Footmarks podcast. You guys are with Jarrod and Behram. And before we kind of end this, because we've already talked about how Test cricket lineups could evolve and whatnot, which was a very fascinating conversation. I just want to discuss a few anomalies with you, which really caught my eye, right? The median entry point one, where you look at number 5 batters who enter in the first 25 overs and after the 25th over mark. There's an average differential of 9, right? So when they enter beyond 25 overs, they're averaging 42, and before 25 overs, they're averaging 33. But you found like a few batters over there who are actually better in crisis mode and don't do as well when the ball is softer. You think of the likes of Angelo Matthews, Saud Shakil, and Fawad Alam. Like, what the fuck's happening there? It should be easier, but how do you explain that?
Some of those might just be wicket-based, right? Like as in, there's 2 Pakistanis there, and maybe they got some good pitches for a little while.
True.
But also, like, there's. I would assume that there are some players in that position who, it might be small sample size as well. But I would also assume that there are some players who just like to get in and get the game started. Like there is an element of that, I think, that certainly suggests that you could do that as well. So yeah, I think it's we always think, well, it's just when it's harder, but it depends on what motivates you, right? And everything else. So I've never been able to bat at number 5. Right, it's a position 5 and 6. I've never really felt any success batting at number 5 and number 6, whereas batting at 3, 4, and 7 suit my personality a lot more, right? And so if I was batting at number 5, and every time I've ever made runs batting at number 5, it's been after a collapse.
Yes.
right? That's where I've made all my runs at number 5 is after a collapse, because that really focuses my brain now.
Yeah, because you're a top order bat, right?
Yeah, but it's not just about that. It's just I need, the way I play is I need a clear role, right? So if I go in and the game is just, if the team's like 100 for 2, I'm probably not going to do much. Like, we're in a pretty good position. I might hit a couple of 4s and then go out. If I come in and we're 12 for 2, right? I'm like, okay, I've got to bat properly here. And at number 5, there might be other people that have that. And it's, some of it is just dumb luck as well. Like, maybe you made a big score when you came in early, or the pitch changed. If you go back to, there's a couple of Michael Clark innings where he actually made huge totals batting at number 5, right? But Australia was in all sorts of trouble when he went in. But I was at those games and it was a new ball pitch, and he came in on the end of the new ball, batted well for a little while, and then the pitch just flattened out and he could do that. We might be looking at similar things here, but that's the big thing about, and me and Robbie talk about this heaps on Come Upper, is like, the way that your brain works, right, in cricket is really, really interesting. And the way that role definition happens and all these sorts of other things, that you do get to a point at certain times, Behram, where you want to really be in a position where you know what you have to do. And maybe for some of these guys, that is the case, and they do want that. I don't know. It could, as I said, it also could just be dumb luck. But it is really interesting because, as you said, it's the 3 guys you said, and it is also Harry Brook, who's the other one. And so those other 3 guys are nothing like Harry Brook. So there's not even as much of a pattern there.
I mean, the difference between Harry Brook and these other 3 guys, South, Fawad, and Angelo, is that Harry Brook does well in both situations, right? Yes. When he enters before the 25 over mark and after, but they don't. That's what really fascinated me. But overall, we've talked about how number 5 batters have been averaging, really, really well. In fact, in the last 8 years in this space playing pandemic, 4 of those years, number 5s have the best averages. But what really kind of is at the crux of the revolution, or the heavy metal number 5s, is the fact that the strike rate has been obscenely high for number 5 batters. And I mean, you could probably say that's largely due to Pant, Brook, throw in Johnny Bairstow, Travis Head, and they aren't phased about the way they play regardless of when they enter. So even if it's before the 25 over mark or after, they are going as hard. In fact, Pant is going harder when he's entering in a crisis, right? So this is a very rare breed, which is becoming like more mainstream by the day. And I suppose the last thing that I just want to talk to you about is that, are we seeing like a watershed moment with respect to a type of cricketer where in the future we will see many Rishabh Pants, Travis Heads, and Harry Brooks? Because this is a major disruption.
I've got a piece coming out on Rishabh Pant about how he bats specifically and why it works and everything. Essentially, one of the reasons that Bazball has had any success at all is the disruption it causes to bowlers.
Yep.
Right? It doesn't allow you to just bowl your best ball. Right? Now, on some days, that might mean they're still bowled out for 120. But on other days, it might mean they make 500 runs in a day. Right? Those are the extremes that Bazball creates. We have the consistency of hitting. We have players who completely trust that they can keep you. Look at Jamie Smith. He's batting up for a draw, and he's like, well, if they're going to bounce me, I'm going to be able to continually hit this ball over deep mid-wicket for 6. He was wrong. Yeah. And certainly picked the wrong ball to try and do it to a slow ball wide of off stump. But that's how batters think now, right?
True.
And so, I think I mentioned it. It might have been in the intro of this piece that Steve Waugh dropping the ball, defending a ball and dropping the ball on the leg side so we can steal a single is Rishabh Pant running down the wicket and screwing up your length. Those are the same things. And they don't look like the same things, and they don't have the same kind of risk attached to them. So I can understand why old school fans would be like, what do you mean? But essentially what Steve Waugh was trying to do is, I'm going to keep your best ball out, but I'm going to make sure that I'm still rotating the strike, right? And that I will survive. I'm going to use soft hands, so if I do edge it, it's hopefully not going to reach slip. And I'm going to use my athleticism to get to the other end very quickly, right? Rishabh Pant's like, well, your best ball, I am going to step 2 meters out of my crease so that your best ball is no longer on the best length. And I can now swing through the line of it and take it over my wide mid-wicket. Or in Harry Brooks' case, he tried to hit his over long off, right? they are trying to do that because, again, they're saying your best ball can no longer be your best ball. And I think that's the big change that we are seeing. And that isn't a number 5 change, right? I think we're going to see that in multiple different positions. But again, I think that's hard to do at number 3. Just because the ball's still whip. So if you do it opening, right, and you're attacking the very hard ball with all the fielders up, that's one thing. Number 3, I think, and it's always been, number 3, if you think back to limited overs cricket, number 3 has always been a really weird position, right? Other than like the sort of Ponting, Kumar, maybe Lara and Viv Richards guys, number 3 hasn't really been the dominant position in limited overs cricket. In fact, you're more likely to want to open, right? If you're that kind of player. So I think again, it's easier to attack if you're opening right at the moment, and it's easier to attack if you're at number 5. That number 3 position isn't quite there. So I think this is right. I think it's in the piece. The openers are the other ones who are getting the really high strike rates of recent times. Yeah. So if you have a look, number 5s and openers are the ones with the high strike rates, and number 3 and number 4 have both gone down in strike rate, right? Of recent times. That's not an accident, Behram. That is because those are the positions where it is easier. And if you look at opening has been pretty low, if not the lowest strike rate almost every year. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, it's equal first, right? Or it's second, but almost first. Whereas number 5 had that exposure before. So again, to go back to what you're saying, I think we'll see players in those 2 positions do that. We might end up with the old school opening batters, the defensive batters, might be the ones who bat at 3 and 4, which is, it's all wild and crazy, right? Like there is such a weird pattern going on at the moment that we've never seen anything like before.
That would be quite the spectacle. I mean, look, openers of yesteryear were thinking, all right, let's survive the new ball and then we'll start scoring our shots. And now openers are like, let's start exerting the pressure from the word go. And this year is proof because the opener's strike rate is almost on par with the number 5s. But, as far as the number 5 batting position is concerned, in the past, you look at all these guys who are, in accordance with the opposition team's plans, and they're like, our plan is better. We will survive these tricky phases. We will grind it out, right? And now, all of these new age players, and it need not be number 5s, but I still feel like this position or batting position is at the forefront of this change because of all of these guys that we've mentioned. They just want to throw the opposition team's plans in the spanner. They don't want you to settle. And you might even would have to credit Bazball to a certain extent, right? Because they make it even more mainstream than it already was. Because, like I said, what Australia were doing with Head was, in my opinion, largely accidental because of the weird shifts in the batting order. So it is quite interesting that way. And who's to say where we end up?
We're in a period of time where teams try to bat conventionally, right? People have forgotten about the fucking England with their everyone needed to face 50 balls in the top 3 plan and all that sort of nonsense, right? They've completely forgotten about that. And what they are instead talking about is literally how do we disrupt the team so they cannot bowl their best ball? Yeah. There will be teams that do that with defense. Usman Khawaja isn't coming out swinging like a crazy man, is he? Right? Like, and if Cameron Green went back to number 5 ahead of Head, I mean, remember, it wasn't that long ago, Green was at number 5. I don't think he would be batting in this kind of way, right? Like, so there is sort of, actually, Green might have been a 6, but
yes, there
was a plan he was going to bat at number 5. I don't think they ever ended up getting to it because Head did so well. But so it's not as if everyone is going to do that, but we can already see now that teams are like, we have tried defending, we have tried leaving the ball. This is how much it's changed. It is actually very hard to leave a ball in modern cricket. Because the bowlers bowl from so wide on the crease and they angle so many balls back in. Look what happened to Ninesh Kumar Reddy. It is no longer... There aren't many left-handers. In the old days, left-handers would leave the ball for hours, right? Because everything would be angled across them. Angled across them. We don't do that anymore. We come around the wicket to them far more and we angle everything back into them. And so it's actually harder to play traditional defensive cricket, right? Because one of your big weapons is being taken away. So we are seeing in every direction, Behram, we look, there is a disruption being caused to cricket one way or another. And the batters the batters and the coaches and the selectors are having to catch up with this because cricket is no longer what it used to be. You know, there's that great bit in the art of batting, right? I shouldn't say great bit in the art of batting. That has nothing to do with me, but it's Rahul Dravid. That Rahul Dravid is like sitting there coaching all of his players, going, "Guys, you got to use your feet to the spinners. You got to use your feet to the spinners. You got to use your feet to the spinners." And the guy, eventually, someone turns around to him and goes, "We can't. They bowl too quick." Right?
Yeah.
So everything we know about this is one of the greatest players of spin that has ever existed. Right? And his method is obsolete only a couple of years after he's retired.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, it's not just the evolution within the sport, it's the external stuff. The World Test Championship cycle, the reinforced seam, the advent of the wobble seam. Well, that's more to do with cricket, but it's a lot of things happening together, which is why I feel like we are in overdrive mode as far as, evolving techniques and strategies are concerned.
No, exactly. You know, things are changing at such an incredible rate. No more warm-up games.
Yeah.
Right. So you have situations now where a bowler will come in and they just don't look right. Yeah. Or a batter will come in. Ben Stokes hasn't faced any professional deliveries this year. Right? Like, he just is not spending enough time on his batting at the moment. He's not being able to develop it. Things are just are pinging off left, right, and center. And you have players like, someone like, Rishabh Pant is a number 7 in any other era, and he's batting at number 5.
He's not even in the team in Sonny Gavaskar's era.
Yeah, Scott Boland, and Matthew Potts would not have careers, right? If it wasn't for one delivery that was suddenly invented, or suddenly perfected midway through their careers. Things that so randomly changing and everything else. Vian Mulder is not batting at number 3, right? In another, Raymond Reefer. My God, Raymond Reefer is the falsest false 3 that we have ever had, right? We are in such a bizarre period of time where and if you think about it, it's been building to this for a little while. Like if you go back to the sort of Aaron Finch, Jason Roy, Alex Hales, right? We've been toying with this stuff just a little bit for a while, and we've been trying to work out what works and what doesn't work, right? And now everyone is having to do that in real time. India was an undefeatable team who suddenly couldn't win, right? And they have completely torn up the pages and started again, right? That is what is happening. Australia went from being one of the most attacking teams in the world to one of the most defensive teams in the world, right?
Yeah.
Everything is just so dramatically changing. It wasn't that long ago that I was saying every team in the world needed a BJ Watling. You needed like a backup opener in the middle order, right? It's like BJ Watling would probably bat first drop now if he was in the side, because you wouldn't want him at number 6 anymore. You'd want if you were reconstructing the great team, you'd probably want BJ Watling at 3, Williamson at 4, Taylor at 5. Right, is how you would do that team coming. Like, that's how drastically things have changed. In the space in a short period of time. It's crazy how much different cricket is, and in the next 5 to 10 years, it could even get more weird.
That's the best part of this. We don't even know where we're headed, and I feel like if I am to make an analogy with an era for the world, I suppose that cricket right now is in its post-war 1960s. Hippie, cocaine-induced America phase, right? Like, we don't know where we're heading after this, but it'll be great.
I think I wrote that in its abstract era, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what form we are going to get on a day-by-day basis, right?
Yeah.
We really don't know.
Anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts of where cricket is headed and how you view all of this, batting or all over, like, holistic revolution that we're undergoing in the comment section below.
Sorry.
And you played an ad.
I wasn't trying. I was trying to set the ad up for later, but apparently I didn't do that.
Anyway, just a quick reminder, everybody, you can go to goodareas.co and bookmark that webpage. That can prove to be a one-stop shop for all the fun work that we do as part of our team, whether it be written content, videos, or podcasts. Also, you can become a paid subscriber. You can become one of our patrons on Patreon. That's like those people are who help us power these podcasts in the first place, and they get access to ad-free content, and they talk to us exclusively. They give ideas for Crick Picks. Their ideas for Crick Picks actually become episodes of Crick Picks. So that is as big an incentive as I can give you. But anyway,
it's worth saying that, like, if you go, that people who are on the Discord absolutely love that Discord in such a way. They are so protective of it, and a lot of them I say it's their favorite form of social media now. Like, it's a really cool place to hang out. Every week someone will send me a new message, go, we need a new thread, because it'll be like, I think we've got a book club on there, and it's got nothing to do with cricket books. It's not just cricket books. We've got non-sports related chat. We've got all these different things if you go in, and it really is a fascinating place. And to become a member of the Discord, you have to join our Patreon.
Yeah, so Patreon.com/Good Areas Podcast. That's what you need to do. Go become a Patreon supporter right now and help power this podcast. And